Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be focusing on the Supreme Council for Antiquities that has signed a cooperation protocol with the Massa Group to actually establish an archaeological museum in the new administrative capital. Now, this museum is supposed to showcase all of Egypt's capital since the prehistorical times up until the modern times that would eventually lead to the new administrative capital. And joining us here in the studio to shed more light on this new museum is Dr. Mahmoud Halwagy, the former Director General of the Egyptian Museum. Dr. Halwagy, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our discussion for our topic tonight, some of the main headlines making the news today is the head of state, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, receiving the visiting Guinean Foreign Minister, Mamadi Touré, on Tuesday, who delivered a verbal message from his president, Alpha Condé. This tackled means of boosting bilateral relations and cooperation, as well as consultations on a number of African issues of mutual concern, including the fight on terror. Presidential spokesman Bassam Radi said the president praised the ongoing progress in bilateral relations along the results of the 6th Joint Egyptian-Guinean Committee and the signing of a number of cooperation agreements. And also, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry held a joint press conference on Tuesday with his Guinean counterpart Mamadi Touré. Shoukry hailed the deep and strong ties binding both countries in all fields as the 6th Joint Egyptian-Guinean Committee concluded its meeting in the signing of agreements in various domains. Shoukry expressed Egypt's keenness on boosting and coordinating efforts of the African Union to solve major African issues. For his part, the Guinean top diplomat reiterated that his visit reflects the mutual will of both countries to broaden cooperation horizons. And ladies and gentlemen, before we start our discussion with Dr. Halwagy, let's check out this report regarding the new archaeological museum set to be established in the new administrative capital, and we'll be right back.
In a cooperation protocol signed between the Ministry of Antiquities and Al Massa for Real Estate Development and Investment, Egypt has given the green light for the establishment of a new museum in the City of Arts and Culture located in the new administrative capital last week. The protocol was signed after the approval of the Board of Directors of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, according to the Law on the Protection of Antiquities and its amendments, with the aim of establishing an archaeological museum. The protocol provides the Ministry of Antiquities collection of artifacts to the museum of the new administrative capital for a period of 10 years, which is renewable. The profits will be shared by the ministry and Al Massa Group. The history of all Egyptian capitals from the ancient to the modern eras is expected to be displayed at the awaited archaeological museum. Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, Mustafa Waziri, said during the protocol signing ceremony that the museum would demonstrate the richness of the Egyptian civilization through the exhibition of a varied repertoire of artifacts. He added the museum is said to have 2 floors and will be established on an area of 8,500 square meters, housing a main exhibition hall and an assembly of galleries. Its entrance will be ornamented with 2 Egyptian obelisks, which are originally from the eastern San Hajar area in Sharqiya. It will also exhibit the freshly discovered Toto cemetery, which was recently unveiled and transported from Sohag to the administrative capital museum. The establishment of the museum will be overseen by the Supreme Council of Antiquities, which will select and showcase artifacts and set up object displays, in addition to the organizing of full security of the museum.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, starting off our discussion right away. Dr. Halwagy, now the Supreme Council of Antiquities has signed this protocol with Al-Masa Group for Real Estate Development and Investment to start off and establish this new archaeological museum. Now, how did this idea come about, and what was the reason behind establishing such a museum in the new administrative capital?
In fact, the idea of establishing the new museum as a new administrative capital is to attract more visitors to the new city and the new capital, and also to raise the awareness of the archaeological history and civilization of Egypt to all visitors, whether they are Egyptians or tourists. I think this is the main idea of establishing the new museum, and also to show the visitors why the new capital was established, the reason of establishing the new capital, administrative capital.
Dr. Halwagy, how different should we expect this new archaeological museum to be? How different is it going to be than the Egyptian museum that we're used to in Tahrir Square? What sort of themes, what sort of artifacts will be present in this new museum that will be different? How are the artifacts going to be distributed among all these museums?
In fact, the artifacts will be selected for the new museum to represent and express the ancient Egyptian history and civilization. This will be exposed through the selected artifacts, and also to display the development of capitals of Egypt through ages. From historical period, starting 3200 BC, when Egypt became a central, was unificated by King Narmer, and Egypt has its central government, and it has its own army, and this was the beginning of the first capital of Egypt in 3200 BC. And it will display the capitals from this time until the modern time to show the reason of building a new capital, administrative capital for Egypt.
Well, Dr. Halwagy, this museum will be built on an area of 8,500 square meters, and as you've mentioned, it will showcase the different capitals of Egypt throughout history. Now, we're used to, when we go to museums, we see the statues, we see the mummies, we see the different tools they used. How in this whole space, 8,500 square meters, how is it going to be displayed to actually let people know about these cities, the capitals? In what way will all these artifacts be displayed to reflect these capitals?
In fact, these capitals, to show the development of such capitals, which they are many capitals, starting from Memphis, Nefer, during archaic Egypt and Old Kingdom, while in Middle Kingdom the capital was transferred to Thebes, Luxor right now, until the New Kingdom, while during New Kingdom the capital during the reign of Amenhotep III Akhenaton, the capital was transferred to Tal al-Amarna, and then returned back again to Thebes, Luxor, in the time of 18th dynasty, on the following king of Akhenaton, which is King Tutankhamun. Again, Egypt still, the capital was Thebes, until the end of the what so-called Pharaonic era, which I like to call it ancient Egyptian history. Then when Alexander the Great came over Egypt, 332 BC, he erected and established a new capital, which is well known as Alexandria.
Yes.
Alexandria became the capital during the Greco and Roman period of Egypt, until Amr ibn al-As came over Egypt during the time of Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, and he established the Fustat capital when Egypt became under a Muslim regime. And then after Fustat was established about 21 Hijra calendar, which is 641 AD. Then following the Fustat, there was Al-Askar and Al-Qata'a, which is established by Ahmad ibn Tulun about 868 AD. Following the Askar and the Qata'a, then the Fatimid came over Egypt and established Cairo.
Yes.
Old Cairo, not the recent Cairo.
Yes.
While when Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi came over Egypt, he did not establish a new capital. He surrounded all capitals, like from Fustat to Cairo, with an enclosure wall. He was interested not to build a new city or a new capital, but he was interested to protect this capital. So he established the citadel, the fortress of Salah ad-Din in south of Cairo. Then Cairo started to be increased, and more up till now, and through the Osman period and the Muhammad Ali period and his family. This was mainly, I think, a reason to establish the new capital and the new museum. This will be displayed through artifacts to represent documents about these cities, events, historical, political, social, activities of the people, I mean, socially, like trading, like
the coins, the maps,
artisans,
the tools.
Artisans, and coins, documents, maps, and so on.
Yes. Well, Dr. Halwagy, a little bit away from the museum, now you've mentioned all these different capitals of Egypt throughout its history. Was it easy for the Egyptian people to just relocate the capital and the center of trade and the livelihoods? Was it easy to move from one capital to the other? Because sometimes the distance between these different capitals, from Thebes to Alexandria, it's a long distance. Was it easy for the Egyptians to relocate their mindset and their culture and history from one capital to the other?
I tell you what, like, for example, distance, for talking about Islamic Egypt, distance between Fustat and Qata'a and Askar and Cairo was not so far. It can easily reach it even without using any kind of transportation. But if we are talking about ancient Egypt, like Memphis was the center of Egypt.
Yes.
So, and everybody comes to the capital for some to finalize some documents, to have some goods, to exchange some products, and this happens everywhere. That the capital is the center point of all activities through ages.
Yes. Dr. Halwagy, now this museum will be part of a new arts and cultural city in the new administrative capital. Now the President wanted such an arts and cultural city to be centered in this new administrative capital. How much will such a city be a true reflection of the arts and really signifying a presence, an integral part of our community and our culture, having the arts and culture centered within this new capital?
In fact, that the new administrative capital will house many cultural buildings, such as Opera House, some places to enjoy music, a central public library, besides archaeological museum. All this will activate the life and will express the civilization of Egypt, not only the ancient but also the modern civilization of Egypt. This will be represented by different activities and events through such cultural and archaeological sites and events, which will take place in the new capital of Egypt, the administrative capital of Egypt.
Yes. Dr. Halwagy, now this idea of having this arts and cultural city in the new administrative capital started a little bit over a year ago, and the initial plan by the President was that it would be established in 7 years. However, the President stressed that he wanted it in 2 years, which is quite a short period of time. So, as you've mentioned, we're going to have an opera house there, the museums there, all of these things. Should we expect that now all the musical festivals, the theater festivals, the film festivals, all these things, instead of having them centered or established and inaugurated in Zamalek, for instance, in the already existing opera house, should we expect that all of this will be shifted to the new administrative capital in 2 years?
I think that it will take over partly, not completely immediately in 2 years, but by step by step, most of these events can be take over on the new capital. But with the inauguration of these buildings, it will start to have such events which will attract and pay the attention of Egyptians and outsiders about the new arsenal in the new capital. And this will, again, will help us to attract tourism, or to improve and increase the visitors to Egypt, to the new capital, to enjoy the events, activities in such cultural arsenal.
Yes. Well, Doctor, the Supreme Council of Antiquities will, under the signed protocol, will loan these artifacts to this new museum with the Massa Group for 10 years, for a period of 10 years. Now, what will happen after those 10 years, this loan period, as stated in the signed protocol? What happens after those 10 years?
According to the protocol signed between Massa Group and Egyptian Antiquities Authority, Supreme Council of Antiquities, and the Ministry of Antiquities, the agreement is to loan the artifacts for the new museum for 10 years. Of course, after 10 years, this protocol has to be extended. And it will happen some negotiation between both parts to extend the loan, maybe another 10 years or more or whatever, according to the delegation and what they will agree to, according to the profits of the museum and according to the success of this project. This will help in extending the new contracts and the new protocol between the Antiquities and Massa Group for more 10 years or more than that after the first loan, which ends after 10 years.
Yes. Well, Dr. Halwagy, you're a former Director General of the Egyptian Museum, so you have a lot of experience in this field. What is your view regarding this new policy of the Supreme Council of Antiquities entering and cooperating with entities outside, private entities, if we may call it, to build these museums, to build these cultural centers? Is this something good? Would you rather see that a permanent sort of policy? Would you like it to change after a certain period of time? What is your take on this new policy?
I think this new policy is very important, and I think even it's a private authority, but it is supervised by some national institutions, and this partnership will help both parts to improve projects like Ministry of Antiquities through the profits of this cooperation will help the private group of Massa and the Ministry of Antiquities and Supreme Council of Antiquities. I think this kind of the trend of establishing such cooperation between such institution and governmental institution, this will help some authorities, some ministries, some national organizations, which they facing some obstacles, some problems of lacking of financial aid.
Well, Dr. Halwagy, do you think that, okay, this is an archaeological museum that will display the history of the different capitals of the Egyptian history.
Right.
Now, do you expect other different museums with different themes and different specializations to be established, be it in the new administrative capital or even elsewhere in new cities, in the new Alamein cities, in the new Mansoura city? Do you expect different museums to be established with different themes?
The policy of Ministry of Antiquities and Supreme Council of Antiquities is to spread establishing new museums in all provinces, governorates, to spread the awareness of Egyptian civilization between citizens of Egypt, and also to attract more visitors, tourism to Egypt. So I think the new capital, the new cities will have again new museums, and the Ministry of Antiquities is working now in new museums in Sharm el-Sheikh, in El Alamein, in Kafr el-Sheikh, in Suhag, in Armenia. It will be a new museum for the cult of Atun, Atonic museum, to represent the era of Akhenaten and his cult. So I agree with you that this will happen in the new cities as it happened in the new administrative capital.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, talking about the new administrative capital and this new archaeological museum set to showcase the different capitals over the millenniums here in Egypt, let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Adding to Egypt's growing museum collection, the country will open a new archaeological museum in the new administrative capital in the upcoming months to tell the history of Egyptian capitals in different eras. Located in the capital's arts and culture district, the new museum is expected to feature a variety of artifacts that reflect the richness of Egypt's civilization and cultural history over decades. The museum will tell the history behind Egyptian capitals from prehistoric eras to modern times to clarify why the new administrative capital of Egypt was created. The new museum will document the history of Egyptian capitals starting with Memphis and going through Mit Rahina, Thebes, Tel Amarna in Luxor, Alexandria, Fustat and Cairo. The exhibition will also explore the reign of the Muhammad Ali dynasty and the establishment of Khedive Cairo through the stories of the country's capital cities. It will also display artifacts for each capital, including stamps, trading contracts, coins, reliefs and statues from the time. It is expected to be completed by the end of 2019. The project to build a new archaeological museum will be overseen by the Supreme Council of Antiquities, who will choose the displayed artifacts and the design of the showrooms. The artifacts will be lent to the museum for a period of 10 years, which can be later extended. The museum will be built on an area of 8,500 square meters. The two-floor building will display 1,000 artifacts and tell the story and history of Egypt through different historical eras. The Supreme Council of Antiquities will administer and supervise the museum's antiquities. Moreover, the City of Arts and Culture is responsible for the construction of the museum. Located on an area of 8,500 square meters, the new museum consists of 2 floors, will include the main exhibition hall and sub-galleries. The protocol to sign the new museum in the new administrative capital is one among a series signed during the last few months with the other governmental entities to develop and open new archaeological sites.